Hello. Hi, Dr. Karl-Heinz Rauscher. I'm very happy to be here. We are here for this webinar talking about collective constellations. And so maybe I just start with a very simple question. What is a collective constellation and how are they different from personal constellations that maybe most of the people here know already?
Yeah, well, a personal constellation, this is the work of Bert Hellinger, is always addressing personal issues first. So you want to try to heal a person and maybe his immediate environment, the family. And then collective constellations has in the center a collective issue, meaning an issue which is interesting and touching many people. An issue which is important for the whole society or even for mankind. And so this is not personal, this is collective, and it could be anything. It could be that there is an increased level of aggression in society. It could be, for example, here in Germany also, and in the United States and in many countries, the rise of right-wing political aggression. It could be a pandemic. It could be
ecological, a lot of...
Yeah, it could be, yeah.
So this is all the kind of issue that we're going to look at. So because you're doing a workshop on the 3rd and 4th of July.
Yeah.
It's going to be 2 full days, and it's going to be all about collective constellation, as I understood. So, but why is it important for an individual to come and to bother with collective issues and to come to see and to work on collective constellation? What kind of benefits personally you're going to have? I mean,
yeah, well, some people think it's enough in life to care about your person and your health, which is very important, of course, and leave the collective problems and their solutions to the politicians. And this is not, nowadays, we know that politicians and world leaders not always have the power or the will to really go there and solve problems which are in connections to every one of us. So whatever it is, if it's collective, if it's in society, if it's some sort of global problems, so every individual is also somehow touched. And just to give you an extreme example, if you are healthy, if you're professionally wonderfully on your way, if your children and your relations are thriving, and there's a war, and somebody is dropping a bomb on your house, this all does not really help. Yeah, no, everything is destroyed. This is an extreme example, but there are people on this world who really do experience that in nowadays everyday life. Or they try to make a living, and it's wonderful, and something happens, and they have to be refugees and leave the country.
And even for everyone, even all the ecological issues are going to be like a real problem for all of us anywhere we can have. So this is also maybe we can be, because how are we going to choose which kind of problem we're going to deal with during this workshop? How is it going to happen? What kind of issue are we going to look at? It depends on what. Well,
this is not certain because the group is deciding. We will have the opportunity to work with several issues on this weekend, and the group decides. So that the issues where the most of the group members are interested, we work with them. For example, last weekend, we had a collective constellation in a group, and they decided they wanted to look at the sacred feminine, the sacred masculine, and the relationship between men and women nowadays, and the background of the obvious problems we have with that. And it turned out that everybody wanted to look at this. So we decided to do this. And it was really interesting where we got, and we will do something also on this workshop, open up for all this. And this is really a deep issue. So it is collective, the relationship and what where the problems come from, a collective trauma. It was, problems even on the collective level always come from unresolved trauma in the past. Something happened, and then it was unresolved. It was not taken care of, or could not be taken care of. And then there is some burdened energies, some aggression, some grief, which is not flowing in the air. And if that is in society, it will just repeat itself. There is more grief, there is more aggression. And after hundreds of years, because in collective realms, the time is much longer than in personal constellations, personal problems. In personal problems, we talk about decades, unresolved trauma in the family of origin, resulting from something which happened 50 years ago or 70 years ago, or first 100 years ago, like First World War issues. We still have that in this and in the personal energy field. But on the collective level, if you look at a nation or international relations, you have to really go sometimes really back hundreds of years, sometimes even thousands of years. Especially, we had a collective constellation in January with a Israeli group, and we had an unresolved trauma released thousands of years ago, which turned out to show in the constellation be relevant about the rise of rising aggression and tendencies towards never-ending and repeating war situations in the country. So this is
maybe we can talk about this. I'm sorry I interrupted you. maybe we can talk about this, like how personal trauma are related to collective issues, and how collective issues are also feeding also personal trauma. This is maybe something that we can talk about it, because it's also how it's important for an individual to come to collective constellation and to work on those themes, because it's also why after personal trauma appears.
There are two things. One is if you participate in a collective constellation, then the effects, if there is a good solution, will also touch you as a person. So your life is also, turned into a healing movement. And we have reports of people who really feel changed and feel that their world somehow changed in a positive way, even the next day after a collective constellation. This is one thing. And then it's just good to get insight about the connections. Why do we have climate change? Why do we have slavery still on Earth? Why do we have aggression and suicide bombers in our societies? Why do we have the shootings and killings in our schools? There is always background, and normally this background is not known by those people who are dealing or even not in public, because it's in the unconscious energy field of the nation, of the group. So to get these insights is very interesting. Then you are part, and you become part of the solution, and that not doing it, not looking at this, say, well, the others should solve this, then you could be part of the problem, but just by not just looking, by having a blockage of, I don't look.
This is the sentence of my dad. My dad was saying this all the time. If you're not part of the solution, it means that you're part of the problem.
Yeah, but by not doing anything, you're part of the problem. And why so it is like being alert and awake member of this society, of humankind, a human being who is really taking responsibility for him or herself, and also for the things which are going wrong or could go much better if somebody takes care of. This is really a nice thing to do, and it gives you not only just a nice feeling because you're part of the solution, which is also true, but you have in immediate positive effects on your soul and even on your body and your relationships. And this is also very important. Your relationships will improve. It's all about community and staying together and seeing what went wrong in the past and what kind of energy field is around us. And there you find many collective traumata being mirrored in the energy field of the nation, of humankind. And also this is then part of your personal energy field, because energy fields are not separated. They are interfering with each other.
And now I'm very curious, because we have this webinar and we saw on the beginning that we are all coming from all over the world. So it's even more interesting to have this kind of workshop online, because it makes it much more stronger and interesting. And maybe while we are talking, some of the participants now can share what kind of theme they would like to look at, just to give us an idea of what kind of theme can come over. And while we are talking, I don't know if you would like, because now I would love to ask you the steps and the tool that you're going to use on the Collective Constellation. And maybe after that, we can talk about the healing voices, because we're going to talk also about this, because this is something that you can use also, right?
Well, yes, and this is also very important. There are two things, and one method is systemic constellation work, and it's all about systemic constellation work is to get insights into the background of what happens. You get information about out of the informational field through the representative work in systemic constellation work, and this is true for personal work, and this is also true for collective works. So you will get information about the background, even about the background of the political scenes. It is really true. So you can really see what kind of forces and people are acting around of the big political decisions. This is one thing to get really and to know where all is coming from. So you get knowledge. Knowledge is then already changing the scene. There is already some potential of making better decisions and solving the problem. But to really heal, like collective trauma in the background of a society of humankind, is not knowledge and insight is not sufficient. This is like, that we are dealing with many souls of the past, even hundreds of years ago, trapped in a trauma, and human beings cannot change that. But the shamanic healing powers, they can, and this is really a discovery. I mean, all the shamans of the world know that, but it came to me in the last 25 years.
Explain us, what are these healing voices that you're doing during constellation?
Yeah, well, I call it healing voices because sounds are part of that, and to understand what it really is, you just can imagine that those healing powers which work in healing voices, that they are really everywhere. Also, I'm sure on the back of the moon, they are just with us, and they can. And also are willing to help us. But for some reason, and I cannot explain that, they cannot be effective by themselves. They need two things. They need the yes and the agreement of the client. So open up, yes, I want this, I'm opening up for this. And then they need a human being who is willing and able to be a medium, a channel for And then what they do, and this, I'm doing that in a constellation, and I'm inviting them, and then I'm just lending them my body for a few minutes, because it goes through gestures, and I'm lending them my voice because it goes through sounds. And then I just follow the energy, and it's just streaming through me. And it goes through words, sounds, even sentences from ancient languages, which we don't understand on the brain level, but we do on the heart level. And what they do is they really fight and push back negative energy of those who caused the trauma in the past. So the negative energy of the perpetrators. And also important, they are able, and this is very astonishing, but it is the healing moment, they are able to bring the souls of the victims out of the frozen state of the trauma. And you can see that in the constellations, and even I use that also in collective constellations. If it became clear that a collective, like a war, a genocide, or whatever, happened in the background and the past of a nation, and then this is the initial trauma of the presented problem, and then we bring the victims in, we bring the perpetrators in the constellation, and then I work with shamanic healers to address that. And then the healing starts from there, and it goes through the generations to the present moment. And this is really an extraordinary experience to be there and experience that too. And whether it's only coming, the healing effect is only coming to those people who are there, or on Zoom there, or in a room, if we have a meeting in presence, or whether it's also maybe being effective on people who even don't know about this is going on. This is unclear. It has a clear effect to the people who are there and witnessing that and being part of that. And the other thing about the more collective effects on people who are not there, or even society, this is unclear. It could be, but we'll have to make more future research with that.
I'm sorry, maybe I want to go back a little bit, but I'm curious to ask you, because I don't know if everybody knows here in this webinar that how do you put out the constellation. So maybe I just explain, because I've seen it many times. So you do the constellation with papers, you step on every representative but now it's collective. How do you start it? Like, it's a detective work in a way. So how do you start with this? How do you address the issue, the collective issue? We saw on the chat many subjects, a lot of things are coming again and again, all the gender things, a lot of things going with the hearse and the land, and how is it going? The war and peace, of course, hate and greed. Like, how do you start with the theme?
Well, I take basically everything which is coming from the group, and it's. I see that most of the time it's also connected. I have a big room there, and it is huge, and you can see that constellations, and every position has a paper on the floor, and I go into those positions as the facilitator and as a representative, as I do also in personal work, and also the clients who have like personal individual work online with me worldwide. I do the same thing. But now in collective constellation, it's a little different, because then everybody who is in the Zoom room is invited to be also step into those. In some of the positions, they can just choose, stand up next to their chair there or behind that, and just define that they're standing in aggression, or standing in United States of America, or in Germany, or standing in sacred feminine, or standing in a victim or a perpetrator, or Catholic Church, for example, because this appears sometimes, or in the goddess or in the matriarchy or patriarchy. So we have all those positions there, and you can stand there, and you don't have to, and then you get informations, and you can talk. You are online. So we are really having all those representative information in lifetime. So we integrate all this in constellation, in the collective constellations. And the advantage of an online workshop is that you don't have to stand there so long. So you can just sit down again, and you're out of this position, or you can choose a step next, put a step to the side, and I decide now I'm in another position, and you see which position it is on your screen. And I do this, and people and the participants do that, and we have like a community with that.